guys, more Tenet talk for ya. Does your head hurt yet? Because mine sure as hell does. I've already reviewed the movie Tenet on my channel, so if you guys want my spoiler-free thoughts on the movie, I'll pop a link up there for you to check out. But there was a lot about this film that I wanted to discuss, which I didn't think I could do in a spoiler-free review, so hence why we're doing this video. I went to see Tenet for a second time last night, and as I was leaving the cinema, I was hearing other people's reactions to the film, like with an earshot, and people's reactions were really varied. There were some people saying, oh, this is Nolan's best film ever. And then there were others saying, what a complete and utter confusing mess that was. I never thought I'd have to say this about a Christopher Nolan film, but Tenet might actually be divisive. Is it too smart for its own good? Like I said in my spoiler-free review of the film, I really enjoyed this film, but I can understand where the naysayers are coming from. The film is a lot to digest, but I will say this, after having seen the film twice, I definitely enjoyed it a lot more on the second time, and I also understood a lot more of it. Trust me, it is one of those films which is better on a second viewing. After your expectations have been met with the first viewing, now you can sort of grasp what is happening by focusing on the smaller details of it all. I still have a lot of questions about the film. I don't fully understand it even after having watched it twice, and I'm waiting for the day that a much smarter YouTuber than myself comes along and makes a video about the intricacies of Tenet and how it all works. Or like even Christopher Nolan should do one of those videos that he did for Memento and explain it all with a chalkboard. I would really much appreciate that. After watching Inception the first time, I thought that was a lot to digest, but after seeing it a few times, you actually realize it is quite straightforward. It's just on a first viewing, there is so much information thrown at you and it can be a little bit overwhelming. And that's what Tenet is. It's a bit overwhelming on first viewing. This video isn't a review of Tenet, it's more a discussion about the film itself, and we can just talk about the stuff that would be considered spoilers. But I want to hear your thoughts and opinions on Tenet. Whatever you guys think of this movie, be sure to let your voice be heard in the comments section down below. If you can answer any of the questions that I have about the movie, or if you have questions yourself, pop them in the comment section down below. I'm sure someone who's smart enough will be able to answer them. For me, I was fully on board with Tenet for about the first 2/3 of the film. I understood what was going on, I could follow the plot. I understood the whole reverse entropy of objects and weapons, even though that in itself was a bit of a head scratcher, but I bought into it to a little bit of suspension of disbelief. But it's when the film gets to Estonia and the protagonist and Neil go through the turnstile into inversion to try and save Kat where I began to get confused. That was the literal turning point where this movie started to get really muddled, for me anyways. The last third of the film is where I really struggled to keep up, and part of the reason for that is because Christopher Nolan zipped through so much vital information at such a brisk pace. When the character Wheeler starts briefing the protagonist about what he can expect in the inverted world, it's like rapid exposition gunfire. You need a mask to breathe because the lungs can't pass inverted oxygen through the inverted membranes of inverted lungs. What? Someone please explain the science to me there. When you run, the air is on your back because friction and wind resistance are reversed. Fire is ice, and ice fire, apparently, because it's opposite day. It's just a lot of information delivered very straightforward in bullet points. There's no depth or real explanation, and it's so fast that if you miss like even a single word, you feel like you've missed something vital. Also, the sound editing was a bit of an issue for me because not only do you have to keep up with the rapid pace of the dialogue, but you also have to compete with the loud soundtrack and sound effects being louder than the actual audio of the dialogue. It's quite a common occurrence now in Christopher Nolan movies, and I'm like, please let me just hear the dialogue. Also, what is Tenet? I don't think I even fully grasp what it actually is. I know it's created in the future, but what exactly is it? Is it an organization? Is it a term for the reversing of objects and whatnot? Please someone explain exactly what is Tenet? It's like that thing in Friends. What is toner? Is this Tenet? Is it just the simple act of making this gesture? Does it open doors for you? Help! Am I that dense after having watched it twice that I'm not even sure what the title means? I did wonder if this film was originally supposed to be called Inversion because the characters say the word inversion or inverted so many times throughout this film, and I wonder, was this supposed to be the title but they didn't call it Inversion because it sounds too much like Inception? So they just came up with Tenet because was a bit more soundbitey and it was a palindrome. It's certainly a theory. I wasn't even sure why going inverted would allow them more time to try and save Kat's life in the inverted timeline. Is it because the radiation from the inverted bullet works faster in the linear world, but when in the inverted world, the entropy of the inverted bullet is reversed, thereby making it a regular bullet? Is that right? Did that make any sort of sense? Am I even in the ballpark? Some other stuff I found odd was when Andre blew up the car with the protagonist in and the explosion like turns to ice. How come when the car explodes, the protagonist doesn't die? And the algorithm, I have just one word. What? Can someone explain to me the algorithm and how exactly it works? The algorithm can revert the entropy of the world itself, thereby ending the world, and will only be activated when Andre dies? Is that right? The explosion supposedly sets off the algorithm, but at what point does Andre become activated himself and the world ends? Was it something to do with the pill that he had on the yacht? Kat did jump the gun and she shot him a bit early, but the world didn't end. I'm like, confusion! And then there's the temporal pincer movement with Aaron Taylor-Johnson, and even with the convenient red and blue armbands, I still had trouble telling who was going forwards and backwards. I was just watching that entire sequence and I was like, this is really exciting, but what is happening? I will say this though, one thing that's a real joy on a repeat viewing is watching the extras in the temporal pincer movement and seeing the people that have to sort of run backwards. It's super awkward, but it's really funny. It would have been the most fun extras job in the world though. Either you were running backwards on set, or you're one of those people in the opera house who just got to sleep all day. I am really excited to watch the behind the scenes making of features on the Blu-ray, because there are certain scenes where you're like, how on earth did they do that? Like the highway chase scene where you've got the stunt drivers doing all the maneuvering in reverse. That was really impressive. And then you've got the hand-to-hand combat scenes where John David Washington is essentially fighting himself and he's having to do a lot of the moves like in reverse. It's really cool. It really is such a unique film. Also, how do people feel about the Sir Michael line? Too meta? It made me laugh, but I thought, is this being lazy to have Sir Michael Caine play Sir Michael Crosby and have the actors leave saying Sir Michael? It's just one of the many cheeky winks from Christopher Nolan in this film. Also, Michael Caine still gets top billing when all he does is show up for one scene and eat steak and chips. Now that's star power. 2 times the protagonist shows up for a meal and doesn't eat anything. Once with Sir Michael, and the second time when he meets Andre Sator at the dinner and they exchange the whole balls in the throat pleasantries. Yeah, it's just little details like that which is spot on a second viewing. I also like that Christopher Nolan didn't try to hide the fact of how tall Elizabeth Debicki is. She is a tall woman. She must be at least 6 foot. But yeah, they have her in massive heels, and like the scene where she walks out the restaurant, she is just towering over all these really broad but really tiny guys in comparison to her. I'm not sure why people are saying this film doesn't have any humor, because there were bits of it which made me laugh, not just the Sir Michael line, but the bit where they're doing their breathing before the gas is about to go off and Rob Pattinson's like, yoga. And also the bit where they bungee jump into Priya's apartment and John David Washington takes the interrogation of Priya while Robert Pattinson's character just watches the security and has a gun on them and they're like eating their dinner and he's just like, don't let it go cold. That was a lovely little throwaway line. In fact, there are so many great blink and you'll miss it details in this film. Like Neil's backpack keyring thing, you do see it in the beginning of this film at the opera house, but it's so inconspicuous you don't even realize the importance of it on the first viewing. That's what I've been saying about Christopher Nolan films. They're so much more appreciated on multiple viewings because you can see the details better after you've had the first initial, wow, this is my first time watching this spectacular, mind-blowing, practical stunt-packed movie. That's where your eye goes to. But on a second viewing, your eye picks up on the details better. Once you learn about the protagonist and Neil's history as well as future, at the end of the film, It completely recontextualizes the whole film. And that's why the opening scene is even better the second time, because you don't even realize that Robert Pattinson's character is there. In the end, guys, I'm still so grateful that a film like Tenet even exists, even though it is such a head scratcher. I come out of Christopher Nolan's films feeling smarter for having watched it, but also dumber because I'm not sure I followed it all. But I know I had a great time watching it, even though it leaves a lot for the brain to ponder. But for all of the confusion, I still can't help but admire the sheer ambition and complexity of trying to tell a story like this. I don't think there's many other filmmakers that would dare even try to do what Christopher Nolan does. And I think that's why we hold him in such high regard, because no one else can do what he does, and we're lucky to have him. There's not much in terms of emotional character investment in Tenet, but it's made up for with the visual wizardry and originality. Even though it was a lot to absorb, I felt the immediate rush that I wanted to watch this again and again and again. Even if I don't fully get it, it is still a spectacular piece of cinema, and the appreciation levels only go up the more times you see it. Hopefully by the time I've seen this the 8th or 9th time, I will know what I'm watching, but I still worry by then I won't even know. But what did you guys think of Tenet? Did you understand everything? Was there something that I neglected to mention in this video that you personally didn't understand from the movie? Don't feel dumb for asking questions about this movie. I have dozens of questions, and people out there will have the answers. If you guys have the answers, then please do respond in the comment section down below. For more movie and TV content just like this, don't forget to click subscribe. If you like the video, please hit that like button. If you want to follow me on social media, Twitter, Instagram, or Letterboxd, all in that video description down below.